Okay, so we have a percent of change. This is so weird doing this. And it's a ratio that's comparing the change in quantity to the original amount. So how we're going to find it is we're going to find the amount of change, and then we're going to divide that by the original amount. So we have a percent of increase, and we have a percent of decrease. So, of course, if your quantities are increasing, it's a percent of increase. But if your quantities are decreasing, then it's going to be called a percent of decrease. And you can figure that out before you even find the percent of change. If you're looking at two numbers and you're going from 10 to 20, then it's going to be a percent of increase. But if you're going from 20 to 10, then it's obviously going to be a percent of decrease. Okay? All right, so if we're looking at our gas prices, in 1970 it's $1.30, and in 2010 it's $2.95. So is it going to be a percent of increase or a percent of decrease? It's going to be a percent of increase because the gas is getting higher. Okay. But to find our percent of change, the first thing I need to do is I need to find how much they're increasing. So I'm going to subtract $1.30 from $2.95. So it is changing by $1.65. So once I find that amount of increase, then I'm dividing that by what? The original amount. Okay. Yes, you're always dividing by the original. So this is our amount of increase, dividing it by the original amount, which you can't really see. I didn't copy very well. So in this case, what is the original? The original price? $1.30, right? It's always going to be the first number that you're comparing. So we've got 165 divided by 130, which gives us 1.27. But remember, we're trying to find the percent of change. So is 1.27 a percent? No. So that means I need to change it to a percent. So I can either multiply that by 100, or what else could I do? Move that decimal 2 places to the right. Okay. So that means that the cost of gas was increased by about 127% between those 2 years. Any questions on that example? Okay, flip over. Let's look at example number 2. All right. So Yusuf bought a DVD recorder for $280, and now it's on sale for $220. So they want us to find the percent of change. So is this going to be an increase or a decrease? Decrease. A decrease. First off, there's 2 different ways I could find. If it's on sale, then obviously it's going to be cheaper, right? So the price is decreasing. Or if you look at 280 going to 220, it's obviously a decrease. Okay. So first thing is to find that amount of decrease. So I'm taking my larger number minus my smaller number because I don't want to get a negative. So you're always just taking the larger number and subtracting the smaller number from it. So I get 60, and then I need to divide that by the original amount, which was what? 280. Okay. So this is 60 divided by 280, and that gives me 0.21, and then change that to a percent. So multiply by 100 or move your decimal 2 places to the right, so 21%. Okay. Any questions about that? All right, let's look at A. It says to find the percent of change from 10 yards to 13 yards. So I always just circle that first number because that's always going to be my original. So if I circle it, then I know that's what I'm dividing by. Okay. So I know that I've got to find the amount of change over the original, right? So how am I going to find the change? Subtract 10 from 13. So 13 minus 10, and I'm dividing by the original, which was what? 10, because that's what I circled. So now I've got 13 minus 10, which is 3. So that gives me 3 over 10. What does that bar mean? Divide, right? So I want to change it to a decimal. I should even know what this is as a decimal without even plugging it in. 0.3, right? Because 0.3, 3 is in the tenths place, so that is 3/10. But is that my answer? No, I've got to change it to a percent. So what is that as a percent? What? 30%. If I move it over twice, that means I've got to add a 0 right there, or multiply by 100, either one. So my percent of change was 30%, but was it an increase or a decrease? It was an increase because I went from 10 to 13. So this was a 30% increase. Okay, B says the price of a radio was 20 and now it's on sale for 15. What is the percent of change? So I've still got my change over original. So the change I'm going to find by subtracting. So 20 minus 15. Dividing it by the original, which was what? 20. So that gives me 5 over 20. What is 5 over 20 as a decimal? Madeline. That would be a simplified fraction. I want it as a decimal, though. Ethan. 0.25. So you're dividing 5 divided by 20 to get 0.25. And then what is 0.25 as a percent? 25%. Was it an increase or a decrease?
Decrease.
It was a decrease. So this is a 25% decrease. Any questions about that? Not too bad, huh?
Easy. It's actually
All right, you are working on the last page. It's only 9 problems. When you finish,